really super savory. Got a bunch of toothpicks, everybody can try it, have a big anabolic party, be a great time. Welcome back to the Anabolic Hub, where we make anabolic deliciousness. We're back inside my kitchen today, and we're going back into the Coach Greg Ultimate Anabolic Cookbook 2.0, and today we're taking a look at the Swedish meatballs. We're gonna take a short break from the sweet recipes, and we're diving into the savory today. So we're gonna start by taking a look at the ingredients. Here we go. Ground turkey, panko breadcrumbs, gluten-free not required, unless you're celiac. Beef broth, cornstarch, itty bitty tiny bit of water, ground cloves, salt, pepper, ground nutmeg, garlic powder, onion powder, but today we're using salt, ground cinnamon, not really an ingredient, but we're gonna need toothpicks, and probably some non-stick cooking spray. And you can tell we're getting super fancy when we have some chopped up parsley. All right, so we're gonna get this going by mixing a bunch of stuff into our large mixing bowl here. First thing we're gonna put in is our 900 grams or 32 ounces of our lean ground turkey. Okay, that was the easiest part of the recipe. Glad we got that out of the way. Next, you need 160 grams of your panko breadcrumbs. 160 grams is a lot. Like, we're gonna have to do our twist dump method. Here we go. 160 on the money. Now we need to add all of our spices in. The recipe calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons of all the spices based on your taste. So we're gonna go with 1 of everything today just to keep it consistent. 1 teaspoon of salt. And we gotta grind up our pepper. So based on the salt, we're gonna use the same amount here on our pepper, using the laser eyeballs again. That looks right, we'll say. On the money. 1 teaspoon of the garlic powder going in. We're supposed to use onion powder. I wasn't gonna spend another $8 to get onion powder, so we're gonna go with the onion salt. Same flavoring, I think, just a little bit grittier. Coarser, that's the word I'm looking for, coarser. Anyway, 1 teaspoon of the onion salt / powder going in. There it goes. 1 teaspoon of the ground cinnamon going in. 1 teaspoon of the ground nutmeg going in. And the last spice, and this is where we switch things up a bit, we're gonna be putting in half a teaspoon of our ground cloves. Half a teaspoon going in. And now that we have everything added into the bowl here, what we need to do is mix it thoroughly together. So let's start the mixing. I would definitely mix this for a while. You don't want some of the meatballs to have too much spice while others have none. So mix until you think you've mixed enough, and then mix some more. Okay, I think we be good. Done mixing thoroughly. Even quicker than last time, let's smash the like button, let's subscribe, and let's comment anything down below. Okay, next up we have to coat our cookie sheet with non-stick cooking spray. I'd say that's well coated. Next, the recipe calls for an ice cream scoop to portion out the meatballs. We're gonna roll them together with our hands. I think you could probably just use a spoonful and you'd be fine, but if you want to get fancy, if you have one laying around, use an ice cream scoop. Why not, right? Take your ice cream scoop or spoon. Get yourself a scoop and you put it in your hands and you're gonna roll it back and forth like so. Or you can just roll it in the palm of your hand till eventually you get something that looks like that. Anabolic Swedish meatball goodness. A few hundred more like this and we'll be all done. So I'm just kind of spooning it along the edge of the bowl using the ice cream scoop. You can probably do the same thing with a spoon, but I'm finding that's the easiest way to portion these out so that they're all pretty much the same size. It does take a little while. It took me about 5 minutes to put all those together. So at the end of the day, I ended up getting 23 total Swedish meatballs. You can make them any size that you want. Coach Greg prefers them a little bit smaller, but you can make big ones, you can make small ones, you can make medium ones. Whatever size balls you like, just go with it. All right, moving on. Next step is to put these meatballs into our preheated oven that was set to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius. And we're going to cook them for 20 minutes or until they're cooked all the way through. You can check the internal temperature that should be at 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius to make sure that they're not raw in the middle. I think the 20 minutes is gonna be plenty enough, but you know what? We'll go all the way and we'll check it with a meat thermometer just to make sure, all right? But for right now, let's put these into the oven. Here we go. See you in 20 minutes. Actually, instant for you. Let's go. Oh boy, so it's been 20 minutes. Just took them out of the oven. I did do the thermometer check. They are cooked, but just for dramatic effect, we'll test it here. Boom, 165. That's all we had to reach. These are cooked through. Oh man, they smell delicious. Okay, so we have to let these rest for a bit while we go make the gravy. Here we go. 960 milliliters of our beef broth going into the skillet. All right, pan's already on high. We're gonna let that heat up, and while we do that, we're gonna grab our cornstarch and water. Okay, our pre-weighed 30 grams of cornstarch, on the money of course, and then our 60 milliliters of water. We're gonna mix these two together right now. So water going in. Take your trusty smaller spoon and mix it up. It's not very thick. It's more of a milk consistency, so hopefully this is something that thickens up after that broth really starts to go on high here and boiling. We'll see. Is it possible we use too much water? Geez, I hope not. Be a shame to ruin this at this point, especially how good those meatballs are smelling, but we'll see. Time will tell. This is why we do these things. All right, let's wait for this to go on a high boil. Tossing this in there after that. Here we go. I think we're just about to start boiling here with the broth, so here we go. Okay, I see steam. I think that means it's boiling. We're gonna put in our cornstarch and water mixture now, and then we have to whisk constantly until it slightly thickens. So kind of open to interpretation, but let's get it going. Oh yeah, you can see it already starting to slightly thicken up a little bit almost instantly here. The part that I thought was thickening is kind of broken up a little bit now as we continue to whisk, so we'll see. Doesn't seem like it's going to thicken up, but you never know. Sometimes these things take time. I did think it would happen a little bit quicker than this though. Alright, I don't know how much more this is going to thicken up with me whisking. I'm going to add the meatballs, put it down to a low simmer, and we'll see how this thickens up now. Trial and error. Here we go. Let's see. So I've been letting these simmer for about 7 or 8 minutes now, but it's still a little liquidy. It's kind of starting to thicken up a little bit now. I don't want to overcook these by having the meatballs be under the heat for too long. So we're going to give it another minute and then we're going to put them in a bowl and do the old taste test. So just to show you guys, I think these are still going to taste good because they smell amazing. So, all right, 1 more minute, over to the taste test table. I'm going to sprinkle these around. Some of those on the bottom are going to be out of luck, but there it is, the masterpiece. Okay, let's go see what it tastes like. Okay, well, here we are, back at the taste test table. Which one is it? You guys tell me. Test taste or taste test? I think it's taste test. Anyway, taste test table here. We're gonna try this now. Savory recipe, taking a step back, like I said, from the sweets. So this is a little bit of a different experience here. Very excited to see what these flavors are like. You guys saw me put it together. It takes a little while to put together, but you know, that's okay. It's one of these things that's listed in the cookbook as harder than last time, and I can vouch for that. It is. It's not as simple as some of the other recipes that we've done, but we're gonna find out now if it was completely worth all the time and effort, and I think it was. It took probably about 45 minutes all in. You know, I'm moving the camera around and trying to get good shots, so it took me a little over an hour, but I think if you were to do it just cooking it straight up, it'd probably take you about 40-45 minutes all in. The recommendation is to have them with toothpicks so you can share. So let's try one and we'll see how we did. All right, just gonna take our trusty toothpick here, give one a stab. All right, so you guys can get a good look. That's what it looks like up close and personal there. Looks quite savory, doesn't it? Let's find out. Hand was shaking holding it up there. It's a long reach. All right, here we go. Let's try it. quite tasty. I have to say, that's quite tasty. I've had Swedish meatballs before. This is pretty close. Now the sauce, or the gravy, it's not terribly thick. I kind of showed you guys the consistency before, if you remember. It's not as thick as your typical Swedish meatball sauce, and I let it simmer for about 10 minutes, and I would think at that point it is what it is. I thought it was gonna stay in a brothy consistency. It actually did thicken up a little bit. I'm taking another bite. This is all 100% savory. Obviously, there's no sweetener in this. I think this is the first recipe I've made, maybe ever, without sweetener, but for this, YouTube channel. Coach Greg separates it out. Same way I did, actually, using the ice cream scoop. The way he divided out the calories, and we'll take a look at the macros in a second, but the way he divided it out, it was about 23 of the Swedish meatballs that he put together. So you could probably, split this 3 ways, 2 ways, depending whatever amount of calories you want. I wouldn't recommend trying to eat the whole plate though. That's as super anabolic as that is. Probably not recommended. So you could easily have a third of this and save the rest. You could meal prep it for 3 nights or 3 lunches or whatever you wanted to do. And I went with the ground turkey. You could do ground beef as long as you keep it pretty lean. And I think the recipe would still work. It might even taste a little bit different. Although the beef broth does spruce up the ground turkey a lot. This is one that you'd want to try. This is really super, super savory. All the spices work really well together too. It's very well balanced. 20 minutes is the right amount of time for sure. They're not dried out by any means. You could probably take them out a couple minutes earlier. Some of them, the bottoms did brown up a little bit. Not too bad. I think the nonstick saved it from being a complete mess. The beef broth really helps the ground turkey that usually tastes like nothing. Tastes like something, obviously. And those panko breadcrumbs are really good too. Those really add a nice little flavor, which obviously if you're having Swedish meatballs, that's usually a main ingredient. One of the things with the gravy, and I was looking at a few other recipes of your typical Swedish meatball recipe, and I noticed that a lot of them, actually almost all of them, has heavy cream in it. Now obviously you're not gonna put heavy cream in an anabolic recipe. That wouldn't make sense. It would throw the macros way out of whack and we'd have a ton of fat in there, and that's usually something we try to avoid. So that's probably why it didn't thicken up like a traditional Swedish meatball gravy would. I think if you had that in there, obviously that's a big thickening agent. I would probably try adding a little bit more of the cornstarch into the actual beef broth. I think that would thicken it up and you wouldn't have as much of a calorie gain as you would obviously with the heavy cream. Much like the anabolic breakfast much like the anabolic apple pie breakfast bake that was totally worth the time to make. So is this. I think it's worth giving it the 40-45 minutes. Reserve the time, try it for a dinner. Get a bunch of toothpicks, everybody can try it, have a big anabolic party, be a great time. Anyway guys, I'm gonna try one more of these and then I gotta get going. Plenty of anabolic options out there that can be savory, and this is definitely one of them. So why don't you give this a go? If you do, let me know in the comment section below. I'm curious how it turned out for you. We'll have another boisterous discussion about a nice savory recipe here. Until next time guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Guys, I almost forgot. Buy this frickin' cookbook, would you?